Good evening, and welcome to Hello, It's Us. Hello, It's Us is dedicated to educating the general public about issues that are important to people with disabilities, and it's our premise that as you watch the show, you'll realize that these issues are important to everybody because people with disabilities are a central fabric of the community at large. Hello, It's Us is brought to you through a collaboration between the University of Iowa Center for Disabilities and Development, our friends at Uptown Bill's Coffee Shop, and our friends here at Public Access TV. My name is Mike Hoenig. I am a program coordinator at the Center for Disabilities and Development, and I serve as one of the co-hosts for the show. Keith?
I'm Keith Ruff. I'm the other co-host, a retired advocate, but I still advocate for disability issues, and I'm still writing a book.
I don't think you ever retire as an advocate, do you, Keith?
No.
Okay. Well, we're really excited. This is going to be a fun show today. You know, we try to do a legislative session show both before the start of the General Assembly and at the conclusion, and the time is rapidly approaching for the start of the 2017 legislative session. And so we have two guests in studio today. To my immediate right is Representative Mary Mascher, representative with House District 86.
That's correct.
And to my right, or to her right rather, is the Mayor of North Liberty and Representative-elect Amy Nielsen, representing House District 77.
Yes, correct.
Welcome.
Thank
Welcome
you.
to both of you.
Welcome.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
Well, let's just start out and ask each of you to give us a bit of a background about yourself, maybe a bit about your career and what brought you into the legislature. Mary, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Okay. I'm a state representative. I've been in the House for 22 years now. So I'm just beginning this 23rd year, and I'm looking forward to it for lots of different reasons. Obviously, we're going to have our challenges, but I think there are some key issues that are important to all of us in the state, and ones that we will have a say in, and hopefully will have something positive to give to the people of Iowa. One of them is water quality. We're looking at a water quality bill that hopefully will address Iowa's rivers and streams and help clean them up so that they are good for recreation, good for people to drink, good for people to play and swim in, all of those kinds of things. So we're looking forward to having something come out of this session that can be supported by Democrats and Republicans in terms of that clean water issue. Education's a big issue for all of us, and I've been involved in education my whole life. I was an elementary teacher in Iowa City for 33 years, and I retired a few years ago, but I am still passionate about quality education for all. And so everything from early childhood education to K through 12 education, community colleges, our private 4-years, and our region institutions, our public universities, are very important to this state. They're economic development for Iowa, and then obviously every time we can educate a young child and have them reach their full potential, that's to everybody's advantage. So we're looking forward to seeing what can come from that. Medicaid is a big issue in the state, and we had private companies take over our Medicaid system 2 years ago, and so that system has been occurring now for about a year. And we really need to stay on top of that in terms of monitoring the companies that are managing those services for people, and then also making sure that people get the services they need and deserve. One of the things that we've been concerned about is oftentimes when you see managed care, we say it's managed cost and less care, and we're not real interested in that. We want to make sure that people are receiving the care and the benefits that they deserve, and that we do a good job having oversight over that. So those are some of the key issues that are obviously going to be a part of this session. There are many more, and I'm anxious to talk to you about some that you may be interested in. One of the big issues that are coming before us is the fact that Governor Branstad is leaving the state of Iowa and is going to be the ambassador to China. he has had a very close relationship to the president of China, and so it wasn't unexpected for a lot of us, but we weren't sure if that was really going to come to fruition. And it's official now, and that means that Kim Reynolds, who is our lieutenant governor, will be the new acting governor for Iowa. And everyone's interested and anxious to find out what her agenda will be and whether she'll be similar to Branstad, different than Branstad, what her leadership style will be like. So those are some of the things that we have to look forward to. And then if you don't mind, I'm going to turn it over to Amy.
Oh, that would be
Amy's
terrific.
our newest representative from the area, and we're excited about her representing that whole North Liberty area, and then her district kind of wraps around. I'll let her tell you a little bit about it, but we're just glad to have Amy on board and have her as a part of the delegation now from Johnson County. So Amy, take it away.
Right.
Great, well thanks, and thanks for the invitation, Mike and Keith, to be here tonight to talk with you. I am currently the mayor in North Liberty, and I was elected 2 years ago. And it'll be really sad for me to have to resign that position, because I've really grown to just love the work that I do, and of course, you know, the community. It's my community. I live there, so it's just really important work and special to me. So, but I still get to represent North Liberty. But now I get to add Swisher and Shueyville, Tiffin, Oxford, and Lone Tree into my community. So I'm really excited to get up to the State House and work alongside Mary and our other fantastic Johnson County elected officials up there. And you know, like Mary, I have a high priority on our public education system. You know, for the first time in I can't remember how many years, we're starting to see reading and math scores go down, and that's you know, a direct result of the education funding that we have not been doing for our public schools. And so I'm hopeful that going into this next session, we'll be able to talk some reason with our fellow representatives and try to get a better than 2% you know, allowable growth or state supplemental aid for our schools. But I've been told, well, I'm new, so I can think that. Which
We like
is
how
fine.
you think,
Yes,
Amy.
exactly. I didn't take that as anything but a compliment.
Yeah.
But I'm also very interested in making sure that our state's infrastructure is adequate, because it's not adequate right now. We have, you know, our bridges and roads are crumbling around us, and you know, our residents are having to drive out of their way to get the places that they need to go, and they know that's just not okay. So hoping to have an opportunity to work with infrastructure and maybe some transportation related issues when I get to Des Moines. And then the last thing that kind of what Mary had mentioned about the Medicaid transition, but not just the health services. I'm extremely passionate about the mental health care that's being provided, the mental health and behavioral health services that we get in this state. You know, we're just not doing a good job.
That's right.
And so I'm just really hoping that we can stop that before it gets to be, you know, well, an even bigger problem than it already is, and reverse the direction we're going, so we can provide better service to our residents.
This question is for both of you, and it might be difficult at this time to answer. What are your priorities in this
they did.
session?
Yeah,
I think they did.
I think, Mike, you're right. Education, Amy said that very well. That's certainly a priority of mine, and I think we've mentioned that. But Medicaid oversight and water quality are really important. The other bill that we didn't really talk about yet is medical cannabis, medical marijuana.
Yeah, okay.
And one of the things that we have been seeing this year, which is really exciting, is the fact that we have some Republican colleagues who are now in favor of it and are also going to be putting forth bills to debate and to have us take up. We have a medical marijuana bill already on the books. It's medical cannabis. It's the oil that comes from
Right.
the marijuana plant, but there really isn't a lot of THC in it. The whole issue behind it is it's a medicine for young children who have epilepsy,
Yes.
lots of different ailments. There are also post-traumatic stress disorder. There are cancers that this has been a really good pain reliever for individuals who can't find pain relief with any other medications. And so making that more available, we need to do two things. One is manufactured here in the state of Iowa so that it can be produced here and we don't have to have it being transported across state lines. One of the things we get concerned about is right now at the federal level, it's illegal to bring it from one state to another. And so even though we have allowed people to get medical marijuana, if they transport it and have it mailed to them, in many cases that's illegal. And they could be arrested, and in essence, that's a difficulty for a lot of people who are trying to get it. If we manufactured and produced it here in state, we would have the quality product and it would be more readily available for those who need it. We also need to expand the list of ailments that medical marijuana can be used for. Right now, it can only be used for children who have epilepsy. And obviously, there are far more ailments out there that people would like to be able to use it for, so we need to broaden that list and make sure that more people have access to it.
I
You know-
know one ailment that really works. It works for nausea from radiation treatment.
So that's another one, isn't it, Keith, that people could benefit from that. Mike, what were you
I
going
was
to
going
say?
to just,
Yeah.
you know, as I was preparing for the show, I mean, I obviously know this is a highly discussed and debated issue, but it was a little bit difficult to really know what is, and perhaps you've already clarified it, what exactly is the policy and when is it legal in Iowa? So are you saying that the only approved or legal use in the state of Iowa is for kids with epilepsy?
That's right.
And that's up
right.
to kids up to age 18?
Well, it's my understanding anybody with epilepsy, so I don't think it's
Oh, okay,
just
it's not
children.
just children.
But the point being, we know there are many more ailments
Right.
that people could use it for if it was made, if we could expand that list. And other states do. So it's not that big of a controversy. It's something that we really could and should be supporting. And I do think that there is Republican support to do that this year.
I heard an interview during the legislative session a year ago on a radio station outside of the Iowa City area, and one of the legislators who was on it was being interviewed, I believe was a Republican, and had either had or knew of, had a very close relationship with a family in which the kids had greatly benefited from the usage of it.
Yeah.
And so that his view, he was very open about saying how his view had changed just because of, you know, so I bring that up just because one of the messages that we want to get across to everyone viewing this program is how important it is to get those personal stories out to all of your
Absolutely.
legislators, and even legislators beyond Johnson County who are in a position to make some changes.
Yeah, there were a number of Republicans who worked with us last year, and they were stymied by some of the Republicans within the House Republican caucus who were very adamantly opposed and felt like that was the gateway to all kinds of other misuse of drugs or the legalizing of marijuana. And as you know, that's been done in many other states as well, and they were concerned that that would be the slippery slope. Some of those legislators, Clell Bodler is one of them, who is a former state trooper and also is a state representative, and he had been one of the biggest was the one that was opposed to any kind of legalization, and he is one that is proposing legislation this year. So that's an indication. Peter County is another one who's been a champion in the Des Moines area, and he's one who knows family members and has people that are his constituents who have been really and truly lobbying him and telling him, we really need this. He was promoting the changes. He couldn't get that past his own caucus last year. I think the climate is different, and I think there's going to be more support for that, and we'll see that gets passed this year. So I'm excited about that and that potential.
What kind of a bill do you think will be fashioned this year, if anything? Because of on the news, Mayor Nielsen the bridge in North Liberty was on the news,
Yep.
deteriorating.
Yeah.
So what, just in terms of infrastructure?
Yeah.
Is that, yeah. What,
What kind of bill, if any bill, do you think was passed this year?
You know, we had passed the gas tax 2 years ago now, and that has now come into play because obviously the gas tax is protected and it can only be used for bridges and roads in Iowa. I have a feeling Amy would have supported that wholeheartedly. She knows how important that was to 965 in their community. And I'd love to have Amy talk about that and also that bridge in North Liberty that you're talking about, Keith, because those are the kind of projects that people really want to have taken care of and fixed in their communities. I'll let Amy take over from there because she can tell you what that penny sales tax did, or the increase in the sales tax on gas did for their community.
Sure. Well, you know, the gas tax, it increased our road use budget by about $500,000 in North Liberty, and that's pretty significant because, you know, it's expensive to build a street. So a lot more. I can't remember the exact figure. It's,
many millions?
It's a couple $1 million per mile, I believe. If, but all the numbers kind of swim around when you're dealing with, you know, 3 or 4 different road projects in 1 year, and it's pretty. It's expensive. And you know, the bridge on 965 this year actually is out of the city limits, so it was a Johnson County project, but it's a major, you know, fairway through the corridor, and so it got a lot of attention, and it got fixed immediately. And that's not the case in the smaller communities like Oxford, where they have a fairly small bridge that's out right now and has been out for quite a while, and it connects a newer subdivision, and I think it's these, I get my directions mixed up, but I believe it's the southern half of Oxford to Oxford, kind of the main part of the city, Oxford proper. And that bridge is out, and it has been for a while, and those residents have been told it could be a couple years before that gets fixed because there's not the money, and it would be the county's responsibility to fix it, is what they said. I'm not 100% sure that that's correct, but so they have to drive out of their way to go around to get, you know, through Oxford to get to their house, or to get out of, you know, their neighborhood and then to get back into Oxford when there's a straight shot that it'll take them 1 minute to get in there, and those are the kind of projects, you know, that are getting overlooked. You know, like I said, the 965 bridge is a high-profile bridge, and it was noticed and it was fixed immediately. That little bridge in Oxford, it's going to sit there until you know,
For a long time.
the money rolls around, which who knows when that
makes
could be.
it such a real example. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess, Amy, since we're on infrastructure and getting from point A to point B, it's not too big of a stretch to talk about transportation. And I was pleased to see, as I did a little research, to find out that that's been a priority for you just in your work as mayor in North Liberty. So many of us have utilized public transportation nearly all of our lives, and I think most of us would express some significant concerns about infrastructure just in terms of getting from point A to point B in a timely fashion. That, you know, I think we could all give our examples about whether it's late paratransit rides or having to take 2 or 3 buses to get 3 miles that you can drive in 5 minutes, and you know, the examples abound. But I'm curious if you've hope I'm not putting you on the spot too much here, but I'm curious in terms of what you have how you might translate your advocacy in this area to the state level.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm not exactly sure how it would translate to the state level. I can tell you, you know, that when I became mayor, I spent my campaign just going out and asking people, what is the number one thing that, you know, you see as a need here in North Liberty? And public transit and dog park were the 2 things that I heard the most. So I really just kind of took that and went into my position with, we need to make public transit happen. Now, does it need to look like Iowa City's public transit? No, we're not the size of Iowa City. It needs to be whatever works for North Liberty. And so, you know, we don't have your what everybody typically thinks of as public transit system. We looked at many different options, taxi vouchers, dial responsive service, and different things. And we decided that the fixed route was really what was going to establish our public transit program and get the people to be, used to it and depend on it. And we were lucky to be able to contract with the seats through Johnson County, and they have an extra vehicle, and so they come up to North Liberty for about 3.5 hours every weekday, and just kind of, I think it's 4 or 5 passes around the perimeter to get people from one point in North Liberty to another. And it's not perfect, and it's not fulfilling everybody's needs, but it is a start. And I think part of what I can do is just kind of, hey, let's think outside the box. Incremental steps are sometimes okay.
Baby steps,
Yep,
you bet. You
yep.
gotta start somewhere.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And, one of the things that I love about that example is that it shows a lot of creativity. You basically built something from the ground up, and I think that that there has been a lot of discussion about buses and vehicles just sitting idle for big chunks of a day, and could those vehicles be moving people either from within a city or, there's as I'm sure both of you know, there are a lot of difficulties in the rural areas with non-drivers getting, even like getting even into the university hospital. It's a challenge. So, it's obviously you're a responsive person and you're a creative person, and I think those traits will really serve you and your constituents well in Des Moines.
Well, thank you.
You had a question to that person. Is it still beneficial that you only have one bus come and go once a day?
Right.
Or does that area need another bus?
We have the Coralville bus that comes in the morning and takes residents out of North Liberty, and then it brings them back in once at night. Yeah. So it's not the most cost-effective way to transport our residents in and out of North Liberty, and that's one of the pieces that is kind of, that's coming up next. We have a terrific transit task force that we put together that went through all of these different options and looked at the different costs and the different benefits and the different consequences and things. And so that's going to be the next project. Now that we've got the fixed routes going, we're letting that go and collecting data. And the next thing we'll do is see, okay, how can we expand this so that we can get more people in and out of Iowa City or in Coralville more times during the day, and do it in a way that costs either the same or less than what we're paying right now for the Coralville service.
Maybe the animal and the bill statewide providing better bus service.
We have federal monies that come to each of our municipalities regarding bus service, and I'm sure Amy's tapped into some of that in terms of the size of their community and the fact that they are so quickly growing. But that is available, and it's something that we certainly take advantage of here in Iowa City and in Johnson County. The seat services also gets some of that federal money, but most of it comes from the taxpayers, and the local taxpayers obviously value that and believe that's important for people to get to where they need to go.
As somebody who lives outside of Iowa City and Johnson County, I am just amazed when I work here, and so I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to ride buses in town here, and it's quite amazing. I know we're rapidly coming to the end of our first segment with Representatives Nielsen and Mascher, and since we're on the subject of transportation, I'd like to ask one more related question, and that is that there has been a real push for legislation which would require fueling gas stations to provide accessible refueling, so that a person that's in a wheelchair could pull up to a pump and be able to manipulate the call button with a closed fist, for instance. That is something that's required of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and it just would seem to me that it would be such a no-brainer to get this thing passed. Most recent version, I believe, was Senate File 509. I think both of us, Keith, have had friends that have worked on it. You've probably done some advocacy. I know I have. And it just, we've had some colleagues within the legislature that have worked really hard on that issue, and yet it seems to get bogged down. I'm wondering if, I know, Mary, I'm guessing you have maybe a bit of history or can bring folks up to speed a little bit on whether you think that will go anywhere in the upcoming session, and what's holding it back.
I think we constantly need to revisit and work to improve upon what we have. One of the things that I'd like you to do is identify there are some businesses, some companies, I think Hy-Vee being one of them, that does a really good job. And I think it's always important to point out the businesses who are doing it right and are making things accessible and available to their customers, even though the law hasn't been passed, that they have done it because they know it's the right thing to do. And they also know that people who are disabled, they buy gas and need gas too.
Imagine that.
Yeah, go figure, you know? And so I think, I don't know if you can tell us about others, companies and businesses who do that. I know Hy-Vee is one of them, but can you talk about some others that have done a good job in terms of providing that?
I can't off the top of my head, but what I think I don't know if you can either, Keith, but what I do know that we can do is we can work with some of the folks that have worked hard on this throughout the state and come up with that list.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
And share that with you and others.
And then I think whenever you get a chance to thank them, to showcase them, to identify that this is a company that's doing it right, they get it. And it's important to at least acknowledge that, and then hopefully have other companies say, people are going to those places because they provide that service. If we don't, we're going to lose out on that business, and make it an economic issue for them.
Yeah.
And I think whenever you can turn that, a plus into a bigger plus, it really does make a difference in terms of more businesses saying, we need to get on board with that. That's important. And it is something that could really and truly make a difference at our bottom dollar. So those are some of the things I would suggest. Obviously, we have had people that have been working on this legislation for years, and we will continue to do so. But again, it would be great if we could get a partnership with the Hy-Vees, those kinds of businesses, to have them advocating. And if they came on board and filed with their lobbyist and said that they were in favor of this and they would like to support that legislation, that would go a lot further as well. You always try to build coalitions, and you build them with the groups that are already in support and in favor of that legislation. Hy-Vee has done it voluntarily. They would be a good role model for other businesses to do it as well. So I think, if we can work on things of that nature and get the Hy-Vees of the world to get on board, it would really help.
Well, that's great. Well, we have come, believe it or not, to the end of our first segment here, the first of a two-part series, and so we would like to thank both of you for taking the time to join us for the program. It's been very insightful, and we're very much looking forward to part two, continuing this discussion.
Great.
So thank you also to the viewers. Keith, do you have?
Have a good week out there. Bye now.